We've also diversified our customer base. So we're now serving the entire global supply chain, everything from airlines to forwarders to express companies to e-commerce platforms, several of them, and now to direct shippers as well. So Atlas is really unique in that concept that nobody else do what we do on a global basis. And that has also helped us to become more resilient. So here during 2023, which was the toughest economy since the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, 90% of our business is under long-term contract, right? And that made us, of course, as a company, really resilient because we don't necessarily rely on one part of the market or one part of the business. We serve the entire industry with very long contractual agreements as well.
We are here at the IATA World Cargo Symposium in Hong Kong, and from this conference, we bring important conversations, important interviews with global leaders from the air cargo world. And with me in conversation today is Michael Steen. Michael Steen is the CEO of Atlas Air Worldwide. Michael, great to have you for this conversation.
Reji, great to see you again, and good to be here together with 1,900 of our friends, right?
Thanks, Michael. I'm looking at the past 10 to 11 months, and I see two important milestones for Atlas Air Worldwide. The company got delisted and went private under a new ownership of a new investment group, and you were appointed as the CEO of the company. What will be some of the important highlights that you would want to pick up in the last 10 or 11 months?
It feels like 10 years, Reggie, not 10 months. No, kidding aside, first of all, I'm really humbled to get the opportunity to lead this fantastic company forward. Atlas was founded 32 years ago. We're building on a legacy from the great Michael Chowdhury, who basically invented ACMI for the cargo business. And that I now get a chance not only to help building the company to where we are today over the last 16 years, but now getting the chance to lead the company together with our fantastic team is really humbling in itself. So that's been great. The last 10 months have been centered around a lot of change. We obviously went from public to private, and that is a big change in itself. We have three fantastic investors in Apollo Global Management, J.F. Lehman Company, and Hill City Partners. And together we are now charting the strategy for the future. So that's been really exciting. And then, of course, working on our transformation process as we go forward. And we have done that by also performing really well in the market. But I'm sure we'll talk more about that during the conversation.
Michael, tell us about your key priorities for Atlas Air Worldwide as you lead the company under very challenging circumstances. We had COVID, of course, it was good for air cargo, but then we came out, the market conditions were being quite challenging. In a world of uncertainties, of geopolitics, lower demand, what would be some of your reflections as you look at the market today?
Well, first of all, if we talk about Atlas and our strategy, the strategy that we have today, Reggie, is something that we have built over the past 10 years. We have meticulous focus on diversifying in several different areas, diversifying our fleet. We have now 113 aircraft that we operate on 4 different fleet types. And we have another close to 50 aircraft in our dry leasing portfolio with Titan Aviation Leasing. And the service offering there between the dry leasing and the operations that we're running was, of course, a meticulous focus as well. We've also diversified our customer base. So we're now serving the entire global supply chain, everything from airlines to forwarders to express companies to e-commerce platforms, several of them, and now to direct shippers as well. So Atlas is really unique in that concept that nobody else do what we do on a global basis. And that has also helped us to become more resilient. So here during 2023, which was the toughest economy since the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, 90% of our business is under long-term contract, right? And that made us, of course, as a company, really resilient because we don't necessarily rely on one part of the market or one part of the business. We serve the entire industry with very long contractual agreements as well.
If you were to also pick up some of the factors that gives you confidence as to that air cargo industry is on a cycle, it's cyclical, what would be some of the factors that gives you the confidence besides your diversity of the business that you have?
Well, you know, Reggie, if you go back 3-4 decades, right, the economy has been cyclical throughout, right? So we know that there's going to be an upswing of about 3 years, and then you're going to have 18 to 24 months when the economy is going to come under pressure. And it's gone like that for several decades, as we have said. If you look at air freight's role in the global supply chain, and in the global economy for that matter, that has also changed over the years. And we're now extremely essential to the commerce around us. And that means, of course, that there's going to be high demand for the service that we provide. So as we're now coming out of the trough that we saw in 2023, and we expect that the market demand is going to grow by about, call it 3.5% to 4.5%, that's on the demand side. On the supply side, the industry is going to come under pressure. And I will explain to you why. So today there is about 650 wide-body freighters in the world, right? We have about 10% of that capacity in Atlas Air. About 120 or so of those 650 aircraft, from an industry perspective, are older than 30 years. And an aircraft typically has a lifetime between 30 to 35 years. So we're going to see a tremendous amount of aircraft leaving the global fleet as well. And we're not going to see the new production rate growing to the same extent, and also not going to see enough converted aircraft coming into the market. And that is 60% of the total capacity for air freight that's flown on freighters, 40% in passenger bellies. Now, if you look at passenger bellies, less than 50% of passenger bellies is actually utilized for freight because networks changes, travel patterns changes, etc. And you see manufacturing moving to locations where you don't necessarily have that large belly capacity either. So there has been this paradigm shift when it comes to the application of both supply and demand. And if you take that into context of how we see the general economy bouncing back a bit, there's still inflationary pressures. We still have geopolitical challenges as well. But overall, we do expect that general cargo demand picks up. Then, of course, you have e-commerce, which is amazing in itself, right? And those two components combined are going to require more dedicated air freight at the same time as a global fleet will actually reduce in size.
Okay, you mentioned about e-commerce, and my next question is about the heightened sense of optimism from the cargo volume that is coming from cross-border e-commerce. We've seen the stories of Steen and Temu and the amount of cargo that is moving into North America. What are you picking from the e-commerce industry, and what is the future for air freight from the sheer volume that is coming from e-commerce channels?
Well, I think it's really interesting what we're seeing here now at Reji. And it actually started back in 2016 when Amazon deployed the first aircraft domestically in the US, right? And we are flying a big portion of Amazon's network in the US. So we have been in the e-commerce industry right from the start in supplying dedicated capacity. And then, of course, in recent years, we also set up dedicated air bridge for Alibaba China, connecting China with the United States and China with South America. So we are playing a very central role to the e-commerce industry. Now, what you're seeing now is, of course, this explosive growth with new companies entering the market. Temu was largely unknown to the industry 2 years ago. And today, if you take the combination of Temu and Shein, they represent roughly about 3% of total global air freight growth in 2024, right? The projections that we're seeing going forward. It's just amazing to see what they're doing in the marketplace. And then you have new entrants like TikTok that has made public statements around where they would like to be in the next 2 years. And all of these players, by the way, are focused on dedicated freighter capacity for their services. There's a tremendous upside there, and that's something that we're looking forward to.
Michael, there is also an effort within the industry to be a very conscious operator, keeping in mind of people, planet, and of course, we have to also be profitable business. For instance, the purchase of SAF. What are some of very concrete projects that you have within Atlas Air so that you are pushing for some of these big topics of industry?
Right. That goes to the heart of our strategy, Reji. So what I've done in the last 10 months as well, together with our team, is, and I'll talk about the team in a second, is really to redefine our strategy. So our strategy is called One Atlas. And the One Atlas, the number one here, is significant because we are the market leader today, but we want to remain the market leader and we want to grow that position as well going forward. But we're also looking at aligning our strategy in several different areas. So there are 4 pillars of our strategy going forward. One is going to be win the market, which is going to be to continue to grow our presence with our customers, expand our customer base, creating new customers. And that's where upstarts, as we see in the e-commerce industry, becomes really, really important for us. The second one is to deliver performance excellence, right? And that is both, first and foremost, to our customers, to really have the best service quality in the industry, but then, of course, also financial performance to our stakeholders. The third component is our people. We have a fantastic team, and we have transformed the team as well and hired some really great leaders. Martin Drew is now our Chief Strategy Transformation Officer, and most recently, Joel Goldberg, who's going to be leading our IT and digitization activities. And that brings me to the fourth pillar, which is our sustainability strategy and our ESG strategy going forward. We are already today investing in SAF, for example, together with our customers. We have done several projects with companies like Inditex. We are doing a sustainability program with Qantas. which is a 20-year-long customer with Atlas. Fantastic relationship long-term. We're doing reforestation activities in Australia today. We're working with perishable customers in South America to reinvest in the communities, to basically pay for education for children to come into our industry as well. So the ESG strategy is really, really broad. Back to your question regarding sustainable aviation fuel, we have a challenge as an industry, right? If we look at the projections of manufacturing capabilities or refinery capabilities around 2030, we will only have about 5% of the total amount of jet fuel that is going to be able to be produced and delivered. Right? That is extremely costly, and it's by far not enough for us as an industry to go forward. So as we have been talking about here as this symposium as well, we need to engage with governments around the world and the industry to put stimulus in place to produce more sustainable aviation fuel, because that's something that we need to have in order to be successful. Outside of that, we are, of course, investing in these brand new aircraft, the state of the art. That is our way, of course, to drive sustainability for the future, alongside of other integrated activities that we can do together with our customers. So those are the core 4 pillars about our strategy throughout the entire enterprise.
Okay, since you mentioned about the new appointment like Martin Drew as the Chief Strategy Officer and Chief Transformation Officer, to what extent are you satisfied with the digitalization drive in the industry in general and with regard to the digitalization process within Atlas Air? Sometimes do you get a little tired of the word digitalization?
I don't, because we have to do more of it, right? And we as a company, we have to do more just to drive efficiency in the way that we operate. We have grown so fast, Reg, over the past 10, 15 years, and we haven't necessarily invested appropriately in digital platforms for our own sake, just to drive or run our company more effective and efficient. So there's more to be gained there. But in order to decide in what kind of platforms that you're going to invest in, you have to have well-defined processes. And the process piece here is not only internal, it's also industry-wide as far as we're looking at our interface with our partners, whether it's service partners or our customers. And that's where we need to make sure that we spend more time in the future to really put the focus on how we can integrate the digital platforms that we have throughout the entire supply chain. And this is going to be a key focus area for both our new leaders here in Martin and Joel, as they're joining our executive leadership team, and both, of course, reporting directly into me. There's a lot of work to do.
Michael, are there any specific factors that concern you when you look at the air cargo industry, besides the challenges that we kind of face on a daily basis?
That's a great question, Reji. I think resources across the industry is something that is concerning to me. We have seen during COVID that a large part of the workforce left our industry, and they left many other industries as well. And unemployment is at a record low in many countries. And many of our suppliers, for example, whether it's on the ground handling side or MRO side, they have a hard time attracting the right talent to come back. And for some of the skilled work positions as well. And that has had an impact, of course, on the efficiency and the service quality that we're getting from our partners. And that is something that has to get more attention and focus. We need to attract more people into our industry and make sure we do that sustainably over a longer period of time.
When you look at also the changes that is taking place within the industry, is it something that you identify as this should have happened much faster than it should?
Everything. No kidding aside, I think we have talked about this many times, Reji, at various platforms in the industry. First of all, we are a complex industry. We are global, right? We are spanning the entire globe. We are fragmented as well because you have so many stakeholders that are experts in their own field, and we're serving the entire global economy. You have regulations. We are the heaviest regulated industry alongside of pharmaceuticals worldwide. And that makes it complex. So things will take a bit longer, right, in order to make large changes. But I do think that we can do better. I think that we can be more focused. We can have better objectives as an industry. We can collaborate more, air cargo supply chain as well. And that comes down to people, to determination and a focus of really getting things done. I think as we are here at the IATA World Cargo Symposium, I want to commend IATA for the work that they have been doing here steadfast over the past several years in focusing on safety, sustainability, on digitalisation, because that's what the industry needs to do as well. And now what we need to do jointly is to work with regulators around the world and various lawmakers and stakeholders to make sure that we can act even faster, because that is sometimes holding us back a bit.
For the year 2024, what are the things that you are actually looking out for, watching in terms of trends, in terms of developments?
Well, I think we talked about a few, right? We see some really interesting developments when it comes to e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce globally. And it's really global. It's into all markets in the world, which is really, really exciting. We talked about the imbalance between demand and supply. So we need to watch what's going to happen there to the supply side. And there's a shift in, let's say, procurement strategies as well. We see, of course, the e-commerce platforms now going for dedicated aircraft. We see non-asset-based players going for dedicated aircraft. And that is something that we, of course, collaborate with those partners on. We see the leading ocean shipping companies now going into air freight, which they did during COVID. And we are very well positioned there as well, working directly together with MSC as an example. So there's some interesting strategic developments there as well. Geopolitically, we have to, of course, keep an eye on what's happening around the world. There are some challenges, certainly in the Middle Eastern conflicts, the increased rhetoric regarding future potential trade wars, nothing which is supporting our industry and nothing that really supports the global economy. And we have a role to play there as well, as leaders of large corporations, to talk to the various stakeholders to ensure that there is a more aligned approach that actually benefits the economy in general.
Michael, as always, it's a delight to have this conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Excellent, Reji. And let's not wait so long for next time, shall we?
Yes.
Excellent.
Let's do it.
Thank you.